Hindsight is a beautiful thing. They say hindsight is a beautiful thing. When you look back, everything becomes painfully clear. The impossible coincidences that were, in reality, carefully orchestrated moves, the tiny inconsistencies that you never noticed but were glaring red flags in retrospect. Sometimes it's just a simple oversight. Other times it's the start of something much bigger, something that changes the course of your entire life. Looking back, I can pinpoint the moment when trouble first began for me. I was 18 when my ex-girlfriend, Sarah, called and invited me to a party. Did I have any suspicions? Not at all. We had broken up on good terms, remained friends, and kept in touch. Why would I think anything was off? The party was great, full of familiar faces, old friends, and the kind of carefree atmosphere that made me forget about any lingering teenage drama. That night, Georgie as she preferred, caught my eye. I had dated her casually before, but this time there was something different. She was attractive, perhaps even a little out of my league, and for some reason she was paying special attention to me. 5'4", slim and effortlessly confident, she wore Bristol boots that suited her perfectly, enhancing her toned legs. And her jeans, tight enough that I couldn't believe how she managed to squeeze into them, let alone out of them later that night in my car. That was the night I had the best sex of my life. It wasn't glamorous, just the cramped back seat of my car, but we didn't care. It was raw, passionate, and relentless. Georgie was insatiable, and for the next 6 months, she convinced me that I was the only man she would ever love. I was completely enamored. 6 months later, we threw a party to announce our engagement. I bought her a £1,500 ring, an investment in what I thought was our perfect future. A year later we married. 10 months after that, our first child Marcus was born, followed almost exactly a year later by our daughter Ellie. Simone, our third, took a little longer to arrive, but after her birth we decided 3 was enough. Georgie went on the pill, and life seemed settled. At the time, I worked in my father's transportation business. My brother Bob and I were faced with a tough decision as my father neared retirement. Bob wanted to integrate our company into a large franchise, while I was determined to remain independent. I had introduced self-loading trucks equipped with HAB cranes when they first became popular, and I saw the company's future heading in that direction. In the end, we split the business. Bob took the yard, warehouse, and storage space, while I kept the truck fleet and workshop. Life was good. We bought a detached house in a modern housing estate, fitted a small swimming pool in the backyard, and drove nice cars. My Range Rover, her BMW. The only issue? Money. Georgie could spend it like water. She saw the revenue the trucks brought in but never grasped how much went into fuel, payroll, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. It was the one thing we constantly argued about. Thought everything was fine. I was wrong. It started when Marcus was 8. One day, I came home and found 3 children's life jackets hanging in the garage. It was odd, we didn't own a boat. When I asked, Georgie casually mentioned that Roger, our neighbor, had taken her and the kids out on the river. To be cautious, she had bought the jackets. It seemed extravagant for a one-time outing, but it wasn't a one-time thing. Roger and his wife, Betty, had moved into the estate shortly after us. Roger was taller than me, but thin, almost gaunt. Betty was shorter, heavier, and while some might call her unattractive, I never judged. Over time they became part of our social circle. Many neighbors used our pool during the summer, but Georgie, slim, tanned, and confident in her swimsuit, always drew the most attention. I noticed the way the husbands looked at her. Then, something else started to bother me. My daughter began referring to Roger as Uncle Roger. At the time I thought nothing of it. Looking back, I should have been alarmed. One afternoon I came home early and found the house empty. Betty was out front, tending to her garden. When I asked where Georgie and the kids were, she responded without hesitation. They're on the yacht with Roger. They love it, and Roger loves the company. We don't have kids of our own, so it's nice for him. Froze. The kids were supposed to be in school. And something else gnawed at me. Georgie and I hadn't been intimate in months. How often does Roger go boating? Yes. Oh, 2 or 3 times a week, Betty replied casually. Georgie's gotten really good at handling the boat. Bing, bing, bing. The alarm bells finally started to go off. That night, I confronted Georgie. You and Roger alone on that damn yacht. Is that what you've been doing? She rolled her eyes. He's teaching me how to drive and maintain the boat. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is that you're my wife. And Betty is his. You and I do things together, and he should be doing things with his wife. That's how this is supposed to work. You're being silly. Roger's just a friend. That night, she practically attacked me in bed, like she was trying to prove something. It was amazing, almost as good as our first time. But was it guilt? I needed answers. The next morning, I hired a temporary driver for my truck and borrowed a friend's car. I parked near the entrance of our estate and watched. Day 1. Georgie dropped the kids at school, did some shopping, then came home. Day 2, the same routine. Day 3. Roger's car pulled up behind her as she left the estate. I followed them to the school, then to the supermarket, and then she got into his car. They drove straight to the yacht. From my vantage point, I watched them board. Roger refueled, Georgie made coffee. They sat in the sun laughing. And then they disappeared below deck. The sounds that followed told me everything I needed to know. Georgie was always vocal in bed. Quietly, I climbed onto the boat. She was too loud to hear me coming.